So you have two, basically you're using 2 points. You're using the moment, of course, because that's indivisible. But then you're psychologically dividing it. So that is more the C direction of attention, right? So I'm filling that with the C direction of attention. Now, in the beginning, it could include words. It could so like in this moment where I'm trying to create past and future, I think one of the best examples of when I first did it was when I was going with my mom to the hospital and I had to pass time because she was going to get a Demerol shot that she was addicted to. So we were going often. And I remember that I was in the high-rise building and I was like looking over Illinois and I was like, trillions of people have lived and they've never seen this high. And that gave me a source of inspiration, right? So that was past. And then I looked into the future and I'm like, human beings will someday not exist. And this view will change completely. I can embrace this view how it is now, also imagining what it may change into the future, and also honoring and respecting where it came from, tying that all into the awareness that I have in my vision and in my bubble of perception to the trees that I'm looking at. And I kind of combine that and it creates a feeling of all 3 points of time happening simultaneously, right? So present is a very presence, but what I'm actually creating, I think requires a brain to create is that feeling of contextual past and future. Yeah. And to your point, I use that same model because it's just really easy for me to remember. Now, you just said that, quality is it's like your reminder, that you're not practicing when you don't feel that, when you want to go back to that quality. The quality, the way that I'm describing it, is best associated with the wood element and ethereal spirit, right? For me. I'm just trying to describe things in a way that we can go back to and talk about again in an organized way. So this phase that the Chinese have called the wood phase is associated with non-physical, the rarefied aspects of the human experience. And then Po is the corporeal. This is yin and yang, is the physical aspect. It's the more tangible, it's the more solidified as opposed to rarefied, right? So you could look at water. Water is more Po until you start to boil it. And then it starts to transition from Po into more of a steam. And that steam is closer now to ethereal. And it was both at all times, right? Like it had both qualities at all times, but we're human beings and we're seeing things as they move. So we can see its dynamic change as the physical water, the Po water starts to boil, it starts to become ethereal or more rarefied. And then it collects in the sky. And then it becomes more physical again. And then it does that for eternity or for the as long as the earth exists. And that's this constant transformation of yin and yang, going from one to the other.
A really, really helpful analogy because water to me encompasses so much of just the human experience and the different phases of water, which includes ice.
You could have, yeah, it could have done ice
Um,
too. Yeah.
that's a really good analogy for me to think of as a technique.
Yes. Also, as
Where
a
where am I, or where is this thought in that iteration of water is really helpful. Really
yeah,
helpful. Thank you.
you're welcome. It's also a reminder of where am I and am I honoring both? There were times in my personal history where I would get what we might call woo woo. And it feels good for a while to be like very ethereal. But then it's like, but I got bills. I do got to go to work. My dog does
Right.
smell like poop
Those
right
moisture
now.
particles can live in the clouds and
Yeah,
then be and beyond. But then
yeah,
how do I, yeah, how do I
right,
get to work or get my car fixed?
right. well, we'll just make a bunch of money and then we can just spend all of our time on the beach meditating, man. And it's like, something's missing here. So what I'm hoping to point out is that this practice, the way that I present it, is harmonizing opposing forces. So I have to honor both of those forces. And so I won't let myself get all woo woo without a little bit of physical as well. And I won't let myself overly focus on the physical, which is actually what I'm more prone to, is I'm more prone to focusing on, oh, this shit's real, like real, real, everything's real. And then I'm letting the ethereal kind of get away from me. But I'm like, no, 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 no. Where am I right now? Oh, I'm a little bit too much in the metal element. Like this is a little too physical right now. And I'm creating boxes for myself and I'm starting to confine myself and I'm too rigid. You know, metal doesn't bend very well, does it? Wood is much more flexible. And I'm like, oh, I know what's going on. Like I'm not really honoring the quality that, and Don Juan put it, the abstract quality of the moment, that shadow playing with the light, that I've been here before, or that what I really like to do, and I don't know if this is replicable, but I like to hold the context of past, present, and future all at once, you know, and it's really weird to try to describe, but it's a feeling that I personally can recreate, right? So I got that woo, yeah, exactly. We got woo woo and we got do do, and not the poo poo, but do do. So we got both of those, but we really need to not reject one or the other. And for, embracing, we need to find a way to harmonize them so that they can work together. Does that make sense? And that's really, I think,
Well,
what we've
that's
been talking
exactly
about.
what's happened on the macro level right now, right?
Hmm.
That's exactly what's happening. The do is fallen away because it's been overemphasized in a false matrixy kind of way. Because it's everything is what we create, right? Everything. So, yeah, I think that that balance is really important on the
Hmm.
micro level and then that's what's happening. Like that's what I think there's a general awareness that people are going, what? Wait a minute. Wait a minute. We can't
Maybe.
keep doing this. It's not working. The polarity, the duality isn't it's both. Like we have to be in both places. We have to learn how
Yeah.
to harmonize
We have to learn
while
how to
we're
harmonize. Yeah. And I would say that the world is very far from warrior principles, which is how I choose to live my life. So the way that I live my life isn't really represented in politics one iota, really, you know?
no,
So,
I agree with you. It's not representative in politics, but I do
right.
believe it's being represented in the
To some
world
extent,
because there's,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But to some extent, it always has been. Like monks have existed forever, you know? So people have been learning from monks. The common person has been learning from monks for thousands and thousands of years. But if you read the first chapter of the Huan de Neijing, which is like one of the oldest books or oldest forms of writing in human history, it says, why don't people live as long as they used to? So even then, they're like, well, what's going on? Like what? And it lists everything that is still happening today. So thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago, if you look at it, it is exactly the same shit. It's just now it's being played out on a scale that includes massive amounts of technology. But the warrior principles are null and void right now in the world, but in large, you know. So if I started to list some of the warrior principles, you would see how none of those, they don't really align with political parties and they don't really align with the way a lot of people look at the world. And that's okay. You know, I'm not asking anybody to look at the world that way. Again, I'm very selfish in that way. I'm looking at the world in that way because it helps me live my life of value. It helps me remind myself of what do I want to do? You know, my again, warrior principle that may not jive with the rest of the world. My time is limited. Yin and yang will separate. And whatever happens after that is nothing fucking like this at all. So it doesn't matter. I need to make my life count, my acts count right now because death is my advisor. And outside of physical touch, there's no reason I can't do it because nobody's doing anything to me. This is how I talk to
Yeah,
myself.
that's where quality comes in for me when I
Yeah,
remember my time is short. And I remember
exactly.
that all the time now. I mean, a good deal of the time. Of course, I forget.
Right.
But Yeah.
In a weird way, the warrior principles guide my practice. It's the reason for my practice. So if somebody really wants to know, I can't exclude it. I would have to tell them, well, they're like, where does this come from? Why are you doing it? Why are you doing any of this? Because death is my advisor. It advises me to fully live. And in order to fully live, I must be present. In order to be present, I must do the four directions. Now that I've done the four directions, am I filling my experience? Am I filling it with the same awe and wonder that the world and the universe meets me with? Or am I meeting a wondrous, awesome universe with a closed mind, an angry body, physical discomfort, irritation, these types of things, maybe 2 degrees, but, I don't want to live there. So my practice is really important to me. I just so happen to think that some other people can benefit from it as well. And you guys are living proof of that. Like you have benefited, words probably aren't really great to quantify that type of thing. It would be impossible to quantify what my practice has done for me. I would be dead or very, 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 very different near dead. Does that make sense?
Quantifiably dead, even if my heart was still beating.
Right.
You
Yeah.
can only leak power for so long.
I would be chasing entertainment. I would be looking for the next vacation, and nothing's wrong with taking a vacation. I plan to take one when I'm done with school, but it's about chasing. It's about filling your bubble of perception. What are you filling it with? How are you filling it? Is that dependable? I think that the practice is impeccably dependable.
But you were talking about past, present, and future at the same time, holding that.
Mhm.
And I don't think that's just a technique. I think that's embracing an awareness of reality, um, a perspective of reality, because I think that's what it is happening. But if you have anything more to add to that,
Well,
techniques to
it,
encompass that, I
it
would
may, yeah, I mean,
like it.
it may be reality, but past and future require my brain. They don't exist outside of the human mind. You have to have memory for past. It's always, and we all know this, right? You always have the infinite now, and you have causality. Everything is just bouncing off of everything, right?
Right, but the infinite now includes the past, if that makes sense. And if the past, present, and future are existing right now, it answers questions for me, or it clarifies for me the feeling of when I read something from poetry that Ida sends me or writes or posts, and I go, ah, that's so true. And then I go, how do you know that that's true? Why does that resonate as truth for me if I haven't had that specific experience necessarily? And it's because there's a knowing that's greater than my experience, and it has to do with me somehow experiencing it in some context for me to know that that's a truth, a knowing. So, yeah,
Yeah,
I can
yeah.
go in circles with that and it'll sound very woo-woo because I lack the vocabulary to explain it. But
Well, this is a
I think
feeling
there's an
that
element of past, present, and future that is immediate
there
in
is.
this
Yeah,
moment.
yeah, yeah. If I were to describe the technique, right? So we have 3 points, and I mean, that's kind of what I was doing, is just describing, how the technique looks for me, and then you could try to find the feeling, and then we could discuss if it's similar, or you compare notes, and it's like shop talk for our practice. What did that feel like?
Yeah, I'm looking for techniques that make it accessible for you to hold on
Right.
to.
So you have two, basically you're using 2 points. You're using the moment, of course, because that's indivisible. But then you're psychologically dividing it. So that is more the C direction of attention, right? So I'm filling that with the C direction of attention. Now, in the beginning, it could include words. It could so like in this moment where I'm trying to create past and future, I think one of the best examples of when I first did it was when I was going with my mom to the hospital and I had to pass time. because she was going to get a Demerol shot that she was addicted to. So we were going often. And I remember that I was in the high-rise building and I was like looking over Illinois and I was like, trillions of people have lived and they've never seen this high. And that gave me a source of inspiration, right? So that was past. And then I looked into the future and I'm like, human beings will someday not exist. And this view will change completely. I can embrace this view how it is now, also imagining what it may change into the future, and also honoring and respecting where it came from, tying that all into the awareness that I have in my vision and in my bubble of perception to the trees that I'm looking at. And I kind of combine that and it creates a feeling of all 3 points of time happening simultaneously, right? So present is a very presence, but what I'm actually creating, I think requires a brain to create is that feeling of contextual past and future. So I'm in school right now. The moment that I start to like, oh, I can't wait to get this shit. No, 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 wait a second. Hold on. You're learning at a time. Now, do you see what I'm doing? Like, I'm just going to do this naturally. I am learning at a time where it is the easiest for a human being to learn. I have great teachers. I have the internet. I have thousands of years of documented record. I can honor that. I can honor the past of all of the people who were doing the exact same thing I am doing right now. And that's going through a difficult schooling. It's okay. I'm going to be okay. I'm going to hold these two contexts of time, honor them both. And then before you know it, this whole feeling of, oh, I can't wait to get this program is gone. It just didn't even get the momentum it needed to exist. Does that
And
make
you
sense?
chose it. You chose it,
And I
Ernest.
chose it. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. I have to
So
do this. That doesn't have
yeah,
that tech. Yeah.
that
What we,
gives you the feeling of power then, because it was your choice to go through this hard time. You didn't think it was going to be easy.
well, that's an extra step. I have to focus on the intention and will process. I have to give that energy to feel the personal power. Does that make sense? So that's that I have to actually give that awareness for it to exist. So yes, intention and will builds personal power, but not if you don't pay attention to it. You have to chart. It doesn't exist without your awareness. Does that make sense, Ida? How I'm just adding that on to what you
Yes,
said.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You have to be aware. Yeah,
Hmm.
that's true.
So that was almost a two-step process. So I started to notice a feeling of, oh, I can't wait to get this. And then I'm like, no, now wait a second. I'm going to look back on this someday and I'm going to be like, that's when I was in school. Well, that was fun, right? Like I had some good times. So why not just live the future now? Why not just live the past now? I'm living as if the future is happening now. I'm living as if the past is happening now, all at once. And it creates a feeling that I really enjoy. And it feels more harmonious. Like it's a little bit of physical and a little bit of ethereal. It's a little bit of now. But I also, because Don Juan has two principles, erasing personal history, and the other one is basically erasing your yourself, like you're losing self-importance. And how do you do that? You stop thinking about your fucking self all the time. How do you do that with your past? You stop thinking about your past all the time. But I was like, no, no, wait a second. And Carlos also addresses. He's like, but I can't pretend I don't have a past. And Don Juan's like, of course you have a past. I have a mom, you have a mom. I have a first thing that I did, and you have a first thing that you did. But I don't unconsciously bring it up all the time. I'm not constantly replaying it. And in the future, I'm not going to be bound to it. I'm not going to be enslaved by it. Yes, the future exists. Yes, the past exists, but I give it power. It doesn't control me. Do you see what I mean? So I don't, what would be an error is to just pretend that those don't, there is no future. There is no, and that's what we see with the, in air quotes, hipster community, is we're not honoring the harmony between what appear to be opposing factors. We're trying to just dive in to the bliss and just everything is this. And it's like, okay, yeah, have you ever heard of luxury belief? Let's talk about that for a second. What is a luxury belief? we don't have to talk about that. I'm just saying, like, that's what I would say to that person. I'd be like, oh, really? Okay, yeah.
It's also looking at the past in a different way. Like once you recognize that the stories that you tell about the past are much more perception than they were factual. You know what I mean? Like even the story you told about remembering that time when you were a kid, that
Mhm.
often happens with me when I'm really practicing, is that I'll have remembrances of things that I did as a kid that were what I would consider now a more advanced or practiced techniques because
Yes,
I didn't have distractions from it. I could practice
right.
whatever I wanted. I was creating my experience. But as I got older, I created a story of remembering what that was. And if I really examine it, which I don't want to spend too much time doing, it's really just the story that is carrying the emotion from me. And it has the facts are just antithetical, you know what I mean? Like the story and the emotions that it were evoked and the story I created from it at every stage of development to adulthood has solidified this thing that isn't really real. They were just a bunch of things that happened. And then I created a story about them. And then that story became my experience, et cetera, et cetera. So when I look at the past, like you said, you're looking at that instance with your mom, you're looking at history from a broader perspective. You're letting that inform you from a broader perspective, the future and the past, what came before, not just the stories of Ernest, the ego stories of Ernest. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think, I have, it's not a unique way, maybe, but I have found a functional way to harmonize my emotion with spirit. And it would include physical points on my body. Like if I'm feeling grief, it's probably going to be my lungs. I'm going to focus on my chest area. I'm going to breathe. What element is associated with breath? Metal. What element is associated with grief? Metal. What element is associated with physical? Metal. What is most out of balance when we're in that state of grief? The physical. The spirit and the physical are starting to separate without your permission. And in society, it's really focused on metal. It's pathogenic metal. And we've lost our sense of connection to spirit. So I can even look at those 5 categories and take what Donna just said and my story. My story is visible in those 5 phases. I'm pathogenic water, meaning that these attributes that they associate with the water phase, I have a lot of them. And some people, they'll start to identify with that. They'll be like, I'm Sagittarius, or I'm this and I'm that. Well, the way that I'm looking at it is like, wait a second, that's an imbalance. Like I have a whole lot of attributes in this one thing, which is why my story is I'm always striving for another thing, right? So I'm pathogenic water, and I would always look at people that are fire and be like, "Woo, that's cool. I want to be like that. I want more of that." Well, of course, because that's what's missing in my life. It's not harmonized. It's not balanced. I have so much in this other category that my whole life I've been striving for this other category because it's its contextual opposite. Even though people don't know it, they've been trying to harmonize. I could look at somebody's story, use this framework, and I can say, no, I can see clearly, like this is where the disharmony came from and where it is now. I can see that within this framework. I can see it for myself, and I can help another person see it too within my clinical scope of practice. It's also very convenient because the better I understand this, the more I can actually offer it within my scope of practice. But it's working for me. So that's the main thing, is I'm able, even in the world that I'm living in right now, right? So I'm living in a world that I have to remind myself that the warrior is tested by the petty tyrant. The more petty the tyrant, the better the test. The better the test, the stronger we have the opportunity to grow. And then I look at the contextual, and this is my civil rights movement or whatever. Kobe will have his, and you know, maybe he's having his now too, but who knows? Like maybe something will happen down the road and down the road and down the road. And then also down the road, none of this shit is going to exist at all in the present form. Because in principle, everything changes beyond current recognition. So, you know, that helps me keep past, present, and future in context all at once. And it's a sobering view. And if I focus on it, like Ida was talking about, I can focus on the fact that I'm doing it. I have been intending to do this. I am willing it. I have personal power. Redirect. Is this the energy you want to put out into the world if space junk fell from the sky? The answer is yes or no. Yeah, you just cussed out that ice agent and it wasn't your most glorious moment, but let's redirect. Let's get back to home base. Let's learn from that. Past, present, and future is a space where growth and creativity live. I could see that. Yeah. The growth in the past and the future and the creativity coming from the present and a synthesis of all three. Because it's really just two things. Past and present are the mind. Present is the ever present changing moment that exists, quite frankly, outside of the construct of time. It's only our minds that operate within it creates the construct of time. So I can use that, as Shane is pointing out. I can use the past and the future, which is a mind construct, and constructively combine that with the present. And it creates a feeling.
Yeah, because like the future is like your sorry, it's the echo. Your future is the desire.
That's true. Yeah. Desire is typically a forward type of thing, or it's a forward type of thing being heavily influenced by a past type of thing. And in this model, I would look at, let's just use that as an example for fun before we go. Let's say I'm noticing that I have a very strong desire for something. I'm like, okay, that's natural. Sometimes we get a very strong desire for things, but let me look at my model. Where am I right now? Like I am really charging the heart's desire. Well, what symptoms am I noticing right now? My heart rate is elevated. I'm super excited. I have a palpitation. I can feel my heartbeat. I'm so excited. And it's like, okay, well, that's great. And I'm feeling that. And I actually must have been feeling that probably for a little while before I fully noticed where I was. Or maybe not. Maybe it was a little bit quicker. And that's cool. There's nothing wrong with that. But I'm going to be damn sure to harmonize that with a little water. I'm going to root a little bit, right? I'm going to look a little bit at metal and say, all right, maybe I need to also be a little bit solid right now. In addition and I'm harmonizing it, not saying bad, good, seek good, hate bad. No, I'm saying that there's an element of both, and I just need to harmonize these to create a third thing. And so to summarize, at a certain point in this practice, for the vast majority of our time, we're redirecting to a chosen feeling. And if we have to, we use the other directions, even the cognitive directions, such as words, to help us realign, help recreate that chemical soup. Some of my all-time greatest hits, the feeling of Andy Dufresne. I need that a lot in Chicago and a lot in school and stuff sometimes too. Like I gotta have that. Yeah, I got a long-term plan and I'm working it out right now, believe it or not. Just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not happening. But I'm also just walking through a prison yard without a care in the world. That's a feeling that I like to generate and create. That feeling of personal power. I have to focus on that to generate it and create it. But I really like to create that feeling. That feeling of being in multiple times at once, synthesizing these together. That's a feeling I really, really enjoy. But above all, is that ethereal quality, that abstract quality to the moment. And probably I have an affinity towards that constructually or constitutionally. And I would venture to guess that we do too, like you guys do too. And that could be one of the things that has kept this group together is not only what we're doing, but the kernel of why we're doing it. And I think that kernel is that abstract quality to the moment where we could, Jerry could be sitting out back and just noticing how things are occurring and just getting lost and enjoying that moment of allowing yourself to be lost in that marvel of the world, right? That's a feeling. And then Ida, when doing art or being inspired for, and maybe not even in the moment, you're like, oh, this is a future art project. It maybe will occur later that, and it comes up and it's your inspiration and it's that abstract quality, but it's not just existing abstract. It's the desire to bring it into art. It's the desire to bring it into your backyard and notice it in your morning. It's Donna when she's going out into the neighborhood, noticing both the aperture of focus. Where is my Dantian? That's a very, very focused aperture, but also this neighborhood and how everybody is communing and how they're interacting, everything that I'm noticing on a more macro level at the same time. That's a lens of perception type of play that you can do. And then, of course, Shayna, loves taking photographs. She loves looking at the edges of the world. She likes looking at different types of architecture and how it's changing in the light and all that jazzy stuff. This is the romantic stuff that we can talk about, and it sounds so, but it's a thing. Like it's this abstract quality of the moment is something that, again, if we look at society, we're not honoring it. One of the biggest flaws of society could simply just be the goal. What is the goal? Well, my goal is to have quality and that experience and feeling in as much of my temporary experience as I can. For some people, it's something else.
My challenge is to bring that. I would like to live in that place, and that's not balanced either. So it's to bring the ethereal quality to my just do.
Well, you'd be surprised. You can bring that ethereal. No, you wouldn't be surprised. You would probably see how this relates instantly. But that ethereal, if it's being balanced with the corporeal, is harmonized. So corporeal could be the passing of a loved one. And then the ethereal is noticing everything that is beautiful about that process. And that's when they're harmonizing together. And someone would say, well, how can you see that? Like and it's like,
Then
that's how.
again, for me, it's the opposite. I
Mm,
go right to the ethereal first because it
yes.
it helps me. It's where it's the most clarity for me.
Mhm.
That's where the most clarity and the most preferred state of being is for me. So bringing that into that's why we started a casual conversation about grief surprising you in ways that you didn't expect. It's because in the just do, there are things that remind me that I'm grieving or that
Mhm.
are places that I haven't explored because I go to the ethereal easily and I
Right.
will live there. And then I find the imbalance of that. So I
Right.
have the opposite challenge is to bring it to my 3D experience.
Mhm. Yeah. And that can be done with the practice of the bubble of perception. What is occupying my bubble? Is it harmonized? Where's the aperture? Is it a little bit too expanded and there's no Dantian? Or is there a nice balance of both? And am I able to generate the type of experience that I want? So when I'm in my bubble of perception and I'm experiencing quality, I can still experience and see things that I don't necessarily like, you know, and it just has a different quality. What I'm viewing that I don't like has a different quality, and I experience it differently when I'm in a harmonious state than when I'm clinging to one state or the other. If I'm clinging to the ethereal state, I'm almost offended when something brings me out of it. You have interrupted my Zen. And it's like, sorry. But then on the which is actually more common for most people is the other side where we tend to get a little bit too attached to the physical. And now everything physical offends us. And we see this with the way that people drive. So the world at large is not practicing the warrior's way or the warrior principles. And a lot of what we're talking about now, Donna, is one of the ultimate goals that Don Juan was hoping Carlos could create, and he called it the mood of a warrior. And when we're creating this bubble of perception, that's what we're hoping to create. So Anne Cecil Sturman is a well-respected classical acupuncturist, and she has qualified emotion into three basic categories. One of them is, well, basically it's like acute, and you know exactly why. So you're pissed off because that person pissed you off. You know exactly why. And then you have the mood state, where it's a little bit more rarefied, a little bit. It's like, you know what? I'm pissed and I know that, but I'm not quite sure why. I don't remember who pissed me off originally, but you're the one pissing me off now. I want you to know, that. So that's more the mood. But the Constitution is, Ernest, you're being an asshole. And I'm like, no, I'm not. And then Donna's like, Ernest, no, you are being an asshole. And I'm like, no, I'm not.
Can you say the Constitution again? You got garbled. The transmission got garbled.
Yeah,
What was
the constitutional one is I can't see it, basically. Everybody else can see it but me. So Donna and Ida and Jerry have told me that I'm an asshole, and I'm like, Shayna, is that true? That means emotionally I'm expressing something that I'm completely unaware of. And guess what? We're all three at all times, and we're a degree of all three. I'm an emotion that I'm unaware of, which is why I have to constantly make sure and check in. All right, Ernest, 5 phases. Where are you, buddy? Okay, you are in wood, liver, anger, irritation, land. Like that's where you're headed. Well, what can you do about that? I'm going to focus on my breath because that's what controls the wood element. And I'm going to focus on my breathing, and I'm going to focus on my dantian because water creates wood in the 5 phases. So those are going to be, I'm not going to put my attention on the anger. I'm not going to put my attention on the liver, because Donna even pointed out she feels liver pain sometimes when she gets that angry. And that's why we associate it with right side rib cage pain. That area, people will report pain. And it's usually with signs of irritation and other things that would lead us to a liver type of diagnosis. And then we can treat it, and then we free it up, and then they feel better. So ultimately, Don Juan wanted to help Carlos understand how to create the mood of a warrior. And the mood is a feeling. And this is the way that I talk about it, is that it's the feeling that we're filling our bubble of perception with intentionally. That's the key word. It must be intentionally. It had to have been intended at least a microsecond in advance. It has to be intentional. It can't be, oh, I just found myself zenned out, man. It's like, whoa, you just found yourself zenned out? That's fine. That's great. Like, that's cool. But what now? Like, what are you going to do now? So that's what this practice is all about. And if by starting with the 4 directions and then helping a person with redirection, and then redirection can lead to other aspects of this practice, well, I think it could be a real benefit, because in Chinese medicine, emotions is the 3rd primary cause of disease. And so if it can be a cause of disease, by learning to harmonize and balance, it can also be a curative factor as well. And it doesn't mean just like opposing it with the opposite. And that's not a healing moment when we say, oh, I'm really angry. No, I'm not angry. I'm happy. I'm just happy. I'm going to be really happy right now. You're not pissing me off. I'm happy. It's like, no, you're conflicted.
No, you're in denial.
That's a part of it as well. And the hipsters or not, they might call that spiritual bypassing. So that's why when I gave you my model, I didn't just say, well, what's the opposite of anger and find that. No, I'm like, all right, well, what controls the anger? That's the water. So I got to look at that water, because that's what creates it. That the water is what creates it, and the metal is what controls it. So the metal must not be controlling it if it's out of whack, right? And I'm not creating it as well if it's out of whack, right? And then if it gets worse, all your desires are being led by it. And then before you know it, it's invading the heart space. And then all of your desires are surrounded by your anger and motivated by what you're angry about. I want my desire to be motivated by ethereal spirit, which is what creates the fire element, wood. When in harmony, the wood element has a very strong ethereal component, and wood creates fire. So when I want to feel more happy and more joyous, I don't focus on the fire element. I don't focus on joy. I focus on the ethereal spirit because that's what creates joy. And if I can't do that, then I focus on one of those other things that's not helping me to create my ethereal experience. There's something in the metal element that's way out of balance if I can't, and this is the common state of the world, is that these are all out of balance, but the metal element, the physical, is so out of balance that it's not communicating with the ethereal anymore. Or as much as I can't say anymore, or we would be obliterated. But it's in a degree of either strengthening or weakening. We're kind of oscillating back and forth. All right, all that makes sense? Does that give you some stuff to do as well? Some practice points? Any questions before we head out? I'll tell you guys, but I am writing my pocketbook. So this is the book that feels the most appropriate to write right now. And I am writing the book to myself. I told you about this, but now that school is relaxed a little bit more, and also I really need my practice laid out in front of me so that I can do it. You know, because there's aspects to my practice that I'm engaging in actively every single day. So, well, all of it actually, you know, 4 directions is how I'm doing it. So I'm going to lay that out for myself, and if you guys can benefit, then great. Is it a beginner's manual? I'm going to say that at the beginning. No, probably not. Like this isn't a manual. It's a book of reminders for me and other people. If they can find benefit from it, then cool. But I think it's time that I started to carry a book of my own words rather than books of other people's words in my pocket. Because I've had a pocketbook with me or a notebook of quotes with me like every day for the past 20 years. It started with the pocket constitution that Willie Fowler gave me in 1997. Oh no, 2000, early 2000, because I was out of high school. And I just started carrying that around. And then I started carrying around a pocketbook of quotes. And then it led to like the Tao Te Ching. And then it led to the I Ching. And I had Thich Nhat Hanh. And I had a 365 quotes of the Tao. And it's just, I would always carry someone else's words. So this little pocketbook that I'm making is I'm going to carry only my own words around for a while to remind myself of what I'm doing. Because what I'm doing isn't what they were doing. It has elements of it, and I thank them for that, but I think it's time to move on. For me, I'm just expressing earnest stuff. But okay, well, I'll be back next Sunday. If you have anything on your mind, feel free to ask questions and things in the beginning. I do record. I try to just I pin my own camera, and Shayna is doing a really good job of like cutting things up. So if you ever don't want something included, just let me know. If you don't want us to record because it's super personal, that's fine too. I got you. Okay, and then at some point we might tell people that we're doing the group study, and then if someone wants to come, they can. If they don't, I don't care either. It's fine.
Thanks, Ernest. It was great.
All right, you're welcome. All right, see you guys. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.